and welcome to Find It. I don't even know what to do with myself. I'm on here again. I have been missing in action for 2 weeks, and I am back. And I am so glad to be here, and I'm glad you're here to join us with Dr. Kristy Vanacore tonight. She has been a guest on the show before, and I enjoyed her so much, and the audience enjoyed her so much. We just had to have her back. She had something happen in her life. We had to cancel last week, so now here we are. And I think we'll talk a little bit about that, and I'll talk a little about what's going on with me. And if I have a psychologist on board, I need to pick her brain. Help me, Kristy, help me. So you guys stay tuned, and we are going to show her intro. But before that, I want to say, Find It is brought to you by Studio 11 Style. Check out my free app in your store, in your app store. And you will not miss a single thing that I have going on. When all my new stuff comes out, you will see it first. And it's free, so why not? It's more about selling clothes. It's about feeling good in your skin. And I give tips and tricks and ideas, and we talk on there too. So join me there. But before I say any more, I'm going to have my wonderful producer in the back, Lynn, who I've missed, bring up Kristy Vanacore's video. She'll be right back with us. Oh my gosh, Kristy, welcome back.
Yay! We're together. All is right in the world.
So right off the bat, Joe Ingram says, Debbie, stop picking people's brains. It hurts. Joe, I'm so glad you're with us too. Kristy, oh my gosh, I am just coming off of a very intense, emotional, and time in my life. But then I went to Sedona, and so many times while I was in Sedona, I thought of you because I was in nature and I was in sacred places, and I know how you are connected to Mother Earth. And I just thought, have you been to Sedona?
Not yet.
Okay, girl, you got to get there.
I know. Well, I've been there, not in physical person, but I have been there in other ways, I will say.
That's amazing. Yeah. So let's get to it. So let everyone know who doesn't already, but I see people piping in saying they're excited that you're here. Just an overview, it's in your bio, but what your career is, but then also what you mirror with that.
Yeah. Thank you. First of all, I'm so excited to be back with you. Thank you for inviting me back. And thank you to everyone watching live and to everyone who's going to watch on the replay. Thank you. So I am a holistic psychologist, a wellness practitioner, an author. I wear a lot of hats, but what that all boils down to is that my main mission is to help rewild wellness, to help turn health and wellness on its head, to bring it back to its roots so that people can really heal, people can thrive. And for me, what that's all about, and this word rewilding, right? Sounds like this super, funky, provocative word. But what rewilding is all about for me is breaking away and emancipating ourselves from the domestication of fear and the conditioning of tolerance and apathy and addiction and distraction and dissociation. And it's reclaiming our sovereignty to be the joyful, passionate, purposeful, and potent self-healing beings that we just innately are. So, so many people are out there trying to find the holy grail of happiness and health and all of these things, but they're looking outside and they're seeking from outside what they should know how to source from within. We have everything we need right within us. And so my mission is really, I was a pirate. Sorry, Joe, you're distracting me. Oh, but I love that question. Okay, I'll come back to it. So I love it. So my mission is really to get people healthy and well, by helping them to remember their roots, rekindle their instinctual wisdom so they can reclaim their sovereignty and their self-healing capacities.
So, but when you say this, okay, so and I love the fact that you are all about doing natural wellness and all of those things. But what I really appreciate about you too is that you're not going to poo-poo on someone who needs medication.
No.
That's I love the fact that you want to start with the natural stuff. You want to be able to use what we have naturally to help heal. And then there are times where you need, and I think that's God-given too, the medicine that our doctors are able to provide that can heal people. But I always, and for me, myself too, Kristy, I don't want to take medicine unless I know I absolutely have to. I try all the other stuff first.
Right.
But I loved what you said in the very front of when you first came on, when you said everyone's looking all outside of themselves for happiness and joy. And really, it does start here.
Yeah.
And the other thing that you've said to me before is you take breaks yourself, where you go and you regroup and you refresh, and you're so honest about that. And that is also so genuine and amazing to me, that you being a psychologist, being a doctor, and then being able to be honest with your patients too. I have times where I need to go find myself and get regrouped. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And thank you. Thank you for seeing that, because, it's so important to me to do this work from a place of integrity, and that's why I wrote my story. My first book was not planned. I had no intention of writing a book. But it was my clients who said to me, similar to Debbie, what you just said about how, I always share my story very openly, because I can't take people deeper than I'm willing to go myself.
Ooh.
I can't. It's not possible. Right. So if I'm going to bring people on the journey back home to themselves, to their truth, well, I better be on that damn journey myself.
There you go. Get on there. Get on that train.
And so I am so open and authentic. And yeah, I wrote my story to show people, like, I've lived this. Everything that I teach, everything that I share, I have to practice and I have to embody. And I cannot teach it. I cannot share it as an offering until it moves through me as embodied wisdom. I can share knowledge that I've read up here from books. That doesn't mean a thing. Until it washes through the body and it's embodied, it's not wisdom.
You guys, are you loving this? Oh my gosh, that's so true. And you know what's crazy? You can tell when someone's just regurgitating what they've learned from books versus what they've learned, what they've grown into, and what they feel. That energy and that passion is so amazing from you. And that's what it is. You've settled into it and let it marinate, and then lived it. And you went as deep as your patients can go. I love it.
Yeah.
Kristy, okay. Melissa says Kristy is one of the most genuine and authentic people out there. I know. Now I'm getting emotional. It's so nice when people recognize.
I love you, girl.
Thank you, Melissa, for saying that, because I feel that from Kristy. I do. I feel that genuine authenticity, a beautiful soul that you are, and you share your truth, and I feel the passion, and it's just, so thank you guys for tuning in and saying that, because now's the time to give people all the love in the world, not after someone's passed, which we've all just experienced loss too. So
now. Yeah. And so, to speak to the other part of your question about, taking the time away, right, when it's needed. And again, related to that idea of I can't take people deeper, than I'm willing to go myself. I have to constantly, if what I'm looking to do, right? So I gave this idea of what rewilding is before, and the journey to health and wellness. Well, what is the journey to health and wellness? It's the journey into your true self, right? It's the journey back home to our truth, not the layers of persona that we've worn like masks, but the truth underneath all those layers, right? And we're constantly going deeper and deeper and deeper. Well, the only way to do that is to pull the plug on everything that takes us away from ourselves so that we can be in a state of intimacy with ourselves. And anyone out there watching who knows me, you know I say this ad nauseum. That word intimacy means into me I see. Can I get intimate with myself? Can I go so deep to dive through those layers to come back to my truth? And that's the only way that I can ultimately put myself out in the world authentically, right? And so I have to pause. I have to unplug. And the other piece related to that, Debbie, is that I teach a lot about living seasonally. Okay. So we are one with nature, right? We're not just like, part of nature. We don't go out in nature, right? We are nature. We are no different than the trees, the plants, right? We are one with all of it. We are one and the same. And we are meant to live our lives in accordance with the energy of the seasons. We're nothing more than energy. We're skin and we think we're our bodies, but we're nothing more than portals of energy moving through us. And so it's very important, and I believe, I don't want to diverge too much off topic, but I believe one of the reasons why so many people are so sick right now is because we've gone so far away from living in the way that nature intended, seasonally, cyclically, right? We're cyclical beings. We're circadian beings, right? And right now, regardless of, so we're both, more East Coast, right? It's winter. And if we look at what winter asks of nature, right? We look outside and we see coldness. Here in the New York, Connecticut area, we had a snowstorm and then a massive rainstorm, and everything sort of looks gloomy and barren, right? But, under the surface of what seems like dead earth is so much new life percolating. And nature has to go inward in order for that new life to be born in spring. So winter offers us an opportunity. Look at what the animals do in winter, right? They hibernate.
Yeah.
We're the only
I feel like doing that.
Yeah.
I feel like doing that. We should in certain ways.
We should. And that's the invitation. And right now, I've been seeing this, I work with people day in and day out. And I have seen in the last couple of months, like it seems since end of November through today, so many people experiencing loss, the loss of loved ones, loss of relationships, marriages shifting and changing and ending, and, children moving out, a lot of changes, a lot of endings, of course, death and loss in that way too. And I find it interesting that it's happening during this season that energetically is one of loss and letting go and of death, and recognizing that death is the precursor to new life, right? The destruction that precedes creation, the darkness that gives birth to the light. Well, we have all been conditioned. Part of our conditioning and our domestication is that we've been conditioned to be afraid of the dark, right? Think about it. Like, what are little kids afraid of? The dark and the monsters under the bed, right? And do you know how many adults are afraid of darkness?
Yes.
Right? And we keep the lights on and we keep the TV on and we want to keep going. And what is that expression? Burning the midnight oil, right? Because we're afraid of the darkness. Well, what is the darkness? It's the metaphor, because we're afraid to go in. We're afraid to go in our own womb. What is the womb? It's a dark portal, right? But if we look at a womb of a woman, let's say, who is going to have a baby, right? That womb is the place of everythingness and nothingness all at the same time, right? In that dark space is where that baby is growing and becoming. And then eventually the baby will be birthed into the world, right? So this is not about making babies. This is about the metaphor. This is about what us as humans are here to do, which is to manifest and create more light, Where does that come from? Darkness.
And and being able to go inside. I wanted to tell you, I had told Marsh Engel that she needs to meet you. So she's a wonderful author as well. And she is all about empowering women. And she had just written this most beautiful post. You know, you write beautiful posts. So if you guys aren't following Kristy, you totally should on Facebook, because your posts are really good. Marsh Engel had just talked about, are we lying to ourselves? And going deep into that darkness and seeking, you know, so many times we're like, oh, we're fine and we're doing what we want to do and we're healthy and this is how it is. And this, you trick yourself, you lie to yourself.
Totally.
She just did this. And I'm telling you, you and Marsh need to meet, because I think you guys are two peas in a pod.
Yeah.
I'd love to bring you together. I want you to know her for sure. So, but that's a wonderful metaphor, using the season that we're in right now with darkness and barrenness and the cold, and then knowing that new things will rebirth in the spring. Under the surface, there's beauty and all of the things. I don't know if you're comfortable talking about what has been going on recently with you and how you handle your own grief. And share with us, because I think we all would like to know how to handle grief better in a more manageable, productive, healthy way.
Right. And again, grief, like the darkness, right, is something that we've all become so conditioned to be afraid of. We don't want to talk about it. We don't want to feel it. We don't want to acknowledge it, right? We want to sweep it under the carpet. We rush to take pills or drink a bottle or run around and distract ourselves so that we can anesthetize ourselves to it, right? But grief is a part of this cycle, right? Grief is a part of the natural cycle where we mourn the loss, and yet we can then be ushered into what's to come. So I've been, look, none of us are strangers to grief, right? We've all experienced it. But in the past couple of weeks, my family has experienced the loss of someone very significant to us, a best friend of my son's. And, my kids are no strangers to loss. I'm no stranger to loss. And, this one feels a little different, but it's a loss nonetheless. And the last 2 years, really, for my family have been all about this, have been all about learning how to let go and how to recognize, where our attachments were formed and how to move through and how to really learn to be with some of these emotions, some of these heavy emotions. And, I was reading a few articles recently about, even before all this went on, about complicated grief. People are coining a new phrase, complicated grief. And I'm just sort of like, well, all grief is complicated, right? Like, why is this a new class of a diagnosis? It seems crazy, right? But like everything else, we look to collectively, our culture looks to pathologize everything, and looks to turn it into a disorder. And it's not. It's a cycle and it's a season. So I think one of the most important things is to really look at this season of winter and say, okay, well, winter is the invitation to go in and hibernate. Death, loss of any kind, offers us an opportunity to go in, right? To look at what's happening inside, to understand what's happening with us energetically, right? The bioenergetics of what is happening. Where are we moving into contraction as opposed to being open, right? Mm-hmm. Health is a state of openness and flow and ease versus dis-ease, which is contraction, right? So this gives us an opportunity to go in. And so, sadly, our culture doesn't even value the season of winter and the hibernation period. And it's the same with death. There's this expectation of, okay, get back to work, get back to life. You got to move on with it, right? It's, okay, it's part of life. Death is a part of life. Let's move on. And we don't ever honor what is happening inside of us. And we
bury
don't, yeah, we totally bury it. We push it down in places that we don't want to talk about, right? We put it under lock and key. And like you said, Debbie, we fool ourselves into like, I got this, I'm okay, you know? And I did this. So I'll tell you a very personal story around that, because again, I share this openly. Like, look, I teach about this all day long, but I'm human, right? I'm human. And so I have my own experiences of this from time to time too. So it was just 2 years ago. Well, it will be 2 years in February, that my stepfather, who was a second father to me, he was in my life for 40 years. Him and my mom remarried when I was very, very young, and I was a toddler. And anyway, so he was a second father to me, and he died very suddenly and unexpectedly. And he died the day that I got my box of books in the mail.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
Your authored books.
My authored books. Now, you know, I was writing that book for 7 years. Like, I was birthing this baby into the world. And the day I give birth to it, right? Like, I was all set. I was scheduled online to do my unboxing, you know, all the stuff that the publishers make the authors do, right? I was scheduled to have this celebratory party with the world, you know?
Yeah.
And there I was with my mother collapsed in my arms, now a widow. And this moment where I was standing in my kitchen, and we got the call, and my mother's in my arms, and I'm in a state of shock, right? And my kids are there, and it's just like, you know, what the beep, right?
What the F?
WTF moment. And there's a knock at the door, and there's the UPS driver, and my UPS driver knows me because I may have an Amazon addiction, but we'll talk about that another time. So my Amazon driver knows me, and he knew I was waiting for my books, and he's at the door. I have a glass front door, and he's going, they're here. And he looks at me, and I look at him, and I'm like, and it was this moment that I'll never forget. And he just dropped the box, and I just waved, and I'm like, holy shit, right? Yeah. And why I'm telling the story is because there I was in that moment saying to myself, okay, I've got a mother in my arms. I've got 2 kids here who just found out their grandfather died, right? I've got a box of books. I've got an audience waiting, like, whoa, right? Yeah. And in that moment, you know, I was overcome with my own emotion, but I went right into caretaking mode. What does my mother need? What do my kids need? What does life need from me? Books got thrown in the garage. There went canceled my birthing celebration, right? And I went into caretaking mode. Now, I was aware of what I was feeling. And that's only because, you know, I've been doing my own inner work for 2 decades, right? So I was not conscious of my own grief, right? But I very consciously made the decision to say, I can't do this now. Like, I cannot do this now. And I literally very consciously took my own grief, put it into the box, put it on the shelf, and went into action. Now, I said to myself, okay, I'm going to come back to this maybe in a week. Well, guess what? A week
turned into a month.
A month.
Yeah.
Turned into 6 months. And at that point, our family experienced several subsequent losses.
Oh.
Multiple uncles passed away. Another young person who our family knew passed away very tragically. And so there it was. Now the box is growing, right? The box is growing.
All that in that box, and it's just busting at the seams.
It's growing and growing and growing and growing, you know, and compounded by a loss of, as an aside, you know, when my book came out, it's my life story of how I helped myself heal myself from debilitating psychological and physical illness, right? And that became the foundation of the work that I do. Anyway, it's my truth. It's my story. And I got very personal in this story because, again, I felt I had to, right? That was my choice to open my heart and open my soul and tell my story. Not everyone in my family appreciated
that. Yeah.
And so my father's side of the family decided to essentially disown me because I said in my book that he had had a problem with alcohol when I was younger. So why I bring that up was because a whole family then was lost from me and taken away.
And that's grief.
That's grief. The box, like, grew and grew and grew. Point of my story is that what happens when we suppress, okay, what we don't share, we store. When we suppress, it's like that metaphorical box. It grows and grows and grows. What's happening energetically, okay, imagine that, we are a portal. We have all these channels moving through us, right? And that box almost like becomes a boulder and it creates a blockage. It creates a blockage and energy can't flow freely. And you know what that leads to? Disease. Illness.
Sure. Yeah, definitely.
And that landed me in a place where I was fainting every single day for a 7-month period. I had debilitating everything. My body was breaking down. And I knew what it was because, I'm no stranger to this personally or professionally. But I had to experience that. And so what I did at the time was I had to look at all the people I work with. And I had to say, look, I stuffed the box and it exploded. And now I need to take a step back because I cannot offer anything to you until I tend to my own heart.
That's a very difficult thing to do for anyone, let alone you knowing that these people are in your care.
Yes.
However, it goes back to what you said in the very beginning of this podcast. I mean, basically the old saying that you can't pour from an empty cup.
No.
You can't go there with other people if you can't go there yourself.
No. And I could not be, in my work with people, it's not just important, it's critical that I am a clear vessel. I am a clear channel, right? That I'm so connected to my truth, that I stand in my truth, that I am authentic, and I am a clear vessel, right? To be so present for another person. And if I'm in a moment that I'm overwhelmed, right? And my heart and soul are crying out for my own help, I would be hurting someone else if I tended to them. Now, people do this all the time. Doctors and practitioners do this all the time. And part of that is the medical field, right? Traditional doctors, they can't take time off. It's unheard of, right? But what a disservice to their patients, right? So for me, I'm grateful that all those years ago, I was called to do this work differently. Because, I went against the grain, right? I don't practice psychology like my colleagues do, who I was trained with, right? And some of them look at me like, whoa, you're not prescribing, what's wrong with you? Or you're not hospitalizing people, what's wrong with you? And I'm like, look, you do you, I'm going to do me, right? This is just different, and there's a place for all of us. But I'm grateful that I had the wherewithal to know that there needed to be a change and they needed to be done different, because doing this work differently allows me to do it in the utmost integrity. For me to make sure that when I'm sitting with someone, whether it be one-on-one in a private session or a virtual session or in a class or a workshop or a retreat, that they are getting my complete presence. They are getting my unconditional love and acceptance that isn't tainted by anything. And if there's a time that I cannot offer that to someone, the best thing I could do is take a step away.
Well, you did that last week with me. Yes. You said, I'm so sorry. I cannot do the podcast. I am not in a good space. And I was like, totally get it, and you wanted to be present here. You wanted to be able to speak
Yeah.
your truth and be your genuine, authentic self as you always are. And I commend you for that. Not,
Thank you.
there are some things in life we really do have to do.
Yeah,
But
for
if
sure.
there's something you can do for your own mental health that you don't have to do, tell people you can't.
Yeah.
There's no harm in that.
No, but it takes so much courage, right? It takes courage for us to say no. It takes courage
Oh,
for
that's
us
so true.
not
That's a
just to,
really good point.
yeah, right? It takes so much courage. And in a lot of the blogs and I hate to even call them blogs because that doesn't feel right to me, but in my writings, in my hearticulations, as I like to call it, I talk about, I start a lot of them with, it takes great courage too, because when we're talking about rewilding, we're talking about unlearning. We're talking about going against the conditioning and domestication to go towards what is actually right and true for us, right? It is right and true for a person when they are in the season of wintering, whether it's winter out your window or not. If you're grieving, if you're going through the literal and metaphorical darkness, you've got to go there and you need time to go there. And rather than be ashamed of that, rather than feel weak, rather than feel, incapable of being strong or stoic, right? All the things that we've been conditioned to do. We've got to go against the grain. We've got to have the courage to be so connected to ourselves that number one, we know what it is that we need and we're honest about what we need. And then we're able to go and get it and give it to ourselves. That is the greatest gift we can give to ourselves. And honestly, that is the greatest gift we could give to the world. That is our legacy.
Mm-hmm.
When we are connected to our truth and aligned with our truth and we are embodying that truth, that is our legacy. That is why we're here now. That is what we're being asked to do. So it takes courage. And there was a time in my life, Debbie, when I would have never texted you and said, I can't, right? I would have gotten on that show last week. I would have painted on a smile with lip liner, right? And I would have, told a bunch of jokes and danced, and it would have been all fucking, would have been all fake, right?
Word. It's just a word. It's fine. There's a couple of things I want to read Terry's comment because it looks like she's really involved in this. Everyone experiences grief differently for sure. The hardest part of grief is when everyone moves on to their lives and we're just left with the grief after we have had so much help and attention during the process. And then we realize now we are alone. We now have to figure out our new normal. That was the darkest times for sure. What I had to learn was figuring out my new normal, and it took me several years. After you experience this, you learn to know your own strengths and weaknesses. And she's saying, I know Terry, she lives in Georgia, and she lost her husband. They were very young. She's still young. He had cancer, and she had 2 young boys at home. So it was awful. And she really, and also she didn't live around family. They were her family. And then he was gone all of a sudden. So, that's hard. That's very difficult. So Terry, that's true. And you're right. You're getting a lot of love. And then all of a sudden we went on with our lives. But the thing is, Kristy, I know where you go. I want you to tell people, why is it that when I was in Sedona or when I go to Hocking Hills or when I'm out in nature, I feel my best? There's a reason for that.
Yeah, they're
All
totally
the distractions are gone and I'm grounding into the earth and I have fresh air and that's what you do. Partly,
yes.
right?
Yeah. Debbie, first, I just want to say to Terry, thank you for sharing your story. And, I'm holding you in my heart. And if I can just say one thing about what Terry said about, kind of the new normal that happens, right? some of why that feels so hard. And I, you know, I know, gosh, I wish we had like hours to talk, because there's so much about this that I would love to share, but because it's important. And
You
again,
got to come on again.
we can all relate. Oh, I'll be on, girl. Don't you worry.
Maybe we can even have people give us their ideas of what topic they want you to delve into.
Yeah, I would love that. I would love to do that. But I just want to say, I'll be as brief as I can, but you know, when we look at the word loss, right, it implies that there's something we had that is gone. And, you know, again, I don't want to get too much on a train about this, but what that really has to do with is attachment. And there's a lot of Buddhist teachings on attachment. I don't identify as a Buddhist, or I don't identify as anything. But the teachings have been very life-changing for me. And so I teach a lot of them, and I share them, my training and my personal experience. But, you know, the Buddhists share that the root of all suffering is attachment, that we attach ourselves not just to, you know, material things, although that's certainly relevant in this culture, right? We live in a very materialistic culture right now. But not only do we attach to things, we attach ourselves to people. We attach ourselves to plans and expectations. We attach ourselves to identities. Mm-hmm. We attach ourselves to visions of how we think things are going to be, how things should be, right? So part of that idea of having to find the new normal, yes, things have shifted and changed, but what we're really faced with when we encounter loss is it butts us up against this concept of attachment that causes us to suffer, right? That we are attached to who we are with that person. We are attached to maybe our identity as a wife. We are attached to our identity as a mother, right? You know, my son grieving his friend, he was attached to that identity as, you know, his friend's best friend, right? And so part of what we're grieving, like, this doesn't mean we're not missing the other person, but, you know, we are here, we are motivated by self-preservation. So a lot of the grief comes from feeling like we are now incomplete without that person or place or plan, right? So part of how we work through the grieving process, and when I work with people, this is a layer, right? There's many layers, obviously, but this is a layer of it where we look at the attachments, where we look at how can we recognize that in life, because I always say the way we do anything is the way we do everything, right? Mm-hmm. I learned that from martial arts. I can't take credit for that. My martial arts training taught me that. The way we do anything is the way we do everything. So when we are attached in one area of our lives, we have multiple attachments. Attachment is what causes us to make expectations or have expectations, right? And as we all know, you know, expectation is the thief of joy, right?
Right.
Because then we don't allow things to unfold naturally and organically, right? Then something happens. Someone dies. A plan changes. We don't get the job we hope to get, whatever it is, right? And all of a sudden, that image that we were holding on to for dear life is gone. And we are scrounging around looking for our life preserver, forgetting that who we naturally are is complete without that. Mm-hmm. Right? So that's part of the journey. And so I also say that loss is a profound invitation to become more intimate with oneself, because it invites you to go in, to see where you were holding on, to see what part of you think that you lost, so that you could get to the ultimate truth, which is your innate wholeness and your innate completeness.
Right. And what you're not saying that you're not going to be sad, that you're not going to grieve, that you're not going to miss that person. You're simply saying that a lot of the grief, the part that hangs there that you just can't get through, probably many times is the attachment.
Yes,
like it was even, I mean, you know, like who you, like you really, it resonated with me when you said, I identify as a wife. I identify as a mother, and those jobs. And then when life changes, that attachment to who you were, and that role changes. And that is a loss, a grief, a kind of
Yes.
shift, and, get over yourself. Who am I on? That's the path I've been on. That's finding it,
That's
go
right.
go into that darkness, find who you are on your own.
That's right.
Who is
Yeah, the
Debbie,
question is, who do I become?
Yeah.
Right? It's a new becoming, because it's going to be a new birth, right? And we think of birth, we think of a beautiful new
Mhm.
arrival, right? But
Mhm.
that's because, again, we've been so conditioned by society to put things into black and white categories of good and bad, right? So we have been conditioned to see death as bad, right? As loss of any kind as bad. And we don't, and again, just like the darkness, dark is bad, light is good. Yet the light is born from the darkness, right? And the two go hand in hand. And we don't see that. Yet innately, we know that. And now, Debbie, to circle back to your question about nature, right? Because that's connected to this. Why you feel so good in nature, why you can take a breath in nature, why you can feel the sacredness and the divinity. Yeah, you can feel the divinity of the land, but you know what you're feeling? You're feeling your divinity, because you are the land, right? You are no different from that.
Yes.
I feel most alive and most at home in nature. Yeah, I could say, okay, there's no phones and no distractions. And that's true, because ultimately there, I have a direct portal into me. Into me, I see. And I get the chance to go in. I get the chance to be with her. I get the chance to listen, to really listen, to hear everything that my true self, my higher self, wants to share with me. So that's where I know to go. That's my compass. I don't have to seek the oracle card deck. I don't have to go for a tarot reading. By the way, I'm not saying anything's wrong with these things, okay? But my point is, right, that again, I see this so much, day to day, of like, people are wanting so badly to feel good and to get help and to get answers. And they just don't realize they've got all the answers right in them. What do they need help with? Going in. I say to people all the time, my only job is to hold the lantern and light the way for you to walk yourself back home.
Yeah.
Right?
That's good,
You're
Kristy.
going back home to you. You are the medicine person, right? That's the gift. That's the gift.
When is your next retreat?
Ah,
Let's all go. Everybody, let's go. Let's get
yeah.
there.
Oh, that would be amazing. Yeah, I love retreats. It's coming. I'm working on it. That's the thing, I'll say about retreat, and there's that word, right? Retreat. And I talk about my retreats, which are these multi-day, I don't even know the word, but these multi-day vision quests, and I really model them off of. So let me just say, a lot of my work has been influenced by my shamanic roots. And which is the root of everything. It's the root of all medicine. It's the root of all nutrition. It's the root of everything. And so, the indigenous ones, our elders, our ancestors, they went on vision quests. So when they experienced an ailment of any kind, right, it was believed that happened because they were disconnected from source and true self. Right. And the only way to reconnect with source and true self was to go in nature. So what they did was they would leave their homes, like not pack luggage either, like they didn't have their carry-on. They leave with nothing but the shirt on their back, and they don't take food, and there is no water, and they go out for as long as they need to in order to reconnect. And there's a whole process of how they do that we don't need to get into. But the point is, it's a vision quest. What are we questing to find? What is the vision? The visions that come through us and from spirit about who we are and what is our purpose, right? It's that inner compass. It's all there. But we have to go away to do that, right? It's that vision quest. Now, we can't all go on, 90-day vision quests. Just like not everybody could go on a 7-day retreat with me into the beautiful Catskill Mountains, right? I teach people how to do a vision quest every single day, right in their own living room, right in their backyard. It is possible. This is rewilding. How do we integrate this ancestral wisdom and ancestral practice into 2024 modern day life, right? It's that integration. So yeah, the retreats are powerful, unbelievably powerful, unbelievably life-changing. But my goal, and anyone out there watching who's been on retreat with me, you can attest to this, right from the moment we arrive, I'm teaching you how to take this with you for when you reintegrate into the world, right?
Right. You want to teach people so they can do it on their own and not rely on anyone else.
Totally.
Yeah,
Because
give us the tools.
we live in a culture of dependency.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want anyone dependent on me. I don't
No.
want anyone dependent on any guru, right? You are the guru of your own self. You carry the medicine. I want to bring you back there.
That's amazing. Ah! Oh my gosh, I love it. So when you were, and you still are obviously grieving, I'm looking here.
Yeah.
Nature and breathing and going inside, and you're on your own. And that sounds like, I get it, because I like that. I do things like that. Like, I'm investigating, I'm snooping for clues. I'm going in. Why am I feeling this way? What's going on in my world? I like to be outside with my shoes off, and even in the winter, sometimes just pop them off and feel the earth and take the deep breath. And I love prayer and meditation and all of the things.
Yes.
So I get all of that. But for someone who hasn't had that experience, or is maybe just learning about how to get truthful and go inside with themselves, I mean, that would be a great thing, right? To get a jump start at a retreat, or read your articles or your vision messages on Facebook. I mean, you're right. It's not just a post. It's beefy and it's worded beautifully, where it takes me on a journey every time I read your stuff. And so even reading your articles, your visions, and your, all of the things that you share on Facebook would be a good place to start too, really.
Yeah. I mean, and that's why I'm a writer. I have, since I was a very young child, I have processed. I somehow knew, right? What we don't speak, we store, even though I didn't know it was a thing, but I knew it was a thing.
Yeah.
And I was a writer. I was an only child too. So I spent a lot of time alone. And so I would sing and I would write. And so I've always used writing to share and to speak my truth. And at one point in my life, I shut that down, right? Because I was conditioned to lose my voice, right?
Yes.
And I found my voice again because I was supposed to. That's part of my calling here. So when I share, my hope is only one thing, that somebody who needs support, somebody who needs, again, that lantern, right? That there's going to be some word, some phrase, some sentiment in what I share, because our stories are our medicine. So one of the shamanic healing salves is storytelling. And I've been a storyteller since I was born in this life, and in others as well. Story is medicine. Narrative medicine is a real thing. The founding father of psychology, right? Asclepios, the founding father of medicine, he was all about the narrative, getting people to tell their story. So I share my story as my offering of medicine. It's like, here's my medicine pouch. I'm giving it to you. And if there's some nugget in there that by you reading or feeling or consuming or what have you, will just expand your consciousness in some way, right? Get you to think about something in a way that you haven't before. Get you to feel an emotion that maybe you haven't before, right? Get you to confront something that maybe you've been too afraid of before. Then I've done my job, And so, yeah, people can, check out the writings. But one of the things I want to add, Debbie, to what you said about some of the practices that are really helpful for grieving. And again, it's very personal, like was said before in the comments. But we know, right, that there are certain truths about the human body, right? The human body that is an energetic and physical and mental body and relational body that, I keep saying this expression, what we don't speak, we store. Well, where do we store it? It's not stored in our mind. Okay, we've been conditioned to believe that when things happen, we've got memories, so we associate them with the head, with the mind, right? But that's not actually where they're stored. The energy of it is actually imprinted in our cells, muscles, joints, and tissues. It's in the physical body, and then it's the layer deep in the energy body. Okay. So kind of like I said before, that my box, I was using that image of the box, right? And that it got stuffed, and then it was, exploding, and it became like a boulder. It was like blocking the river, my river flowing through me.
Right.
I teach that metaphor a lot. There's a river flowing through me. And so it was like a boulder in my river. Well, what that means is that my energetic body was tight in contraction and blocked. So my physical body became tight and contracted and blocked, and then illness and disease formed, right? Well, one of the ways that we have to work with grief, or truthfully, any emotion for that matter.
Sure.
The word emotion means energy in motion. That's what emotion is. It's energy in motion. It's an energy. Our brain gives it a label: grief, sadness, anger, jealousy, frustration, joy, right? But ultimately, it's just energy. So we have to work with it that way. So I'm not saying there's anything wrong, for example, with talking or talk therapy. But in order to really get that boulder out of your river, right, to unkink the wire, so to say, just talking isn't enough. Talking is what we call a top-down approach to healing, meaning from the head down, right?
Yeah.
It's heady. Language is a cognitive, it's a cerebral process, right? But again, experiences aren't that, right? It's energy in our body. So we've got to also add in the bottom up, the body. We've got to move the body. Right. So I just want to say that too, because meditation, is very popular now, whether people are doing it or not, they've heard of it. And again, it's a beautiful practice. I have a daily practice of this, of settling in, but we've got to bring in the body and bring in some movement. And there's ways to do this that are better than others. But for those out there, again, who maybe are new to this or new to a lot of these practices, move your body in a way that feels good. Move your body in a way that allows you to feel free. Take your arms, open them up, expand them. Feel what it's like to open your chest, to open your heart. That's uncomfortable for a lot of people. So if you start there, put on a playlist and dance around your living room and bring your arms out. The arms are an extension of the heart. Bring your arms out. Move your body.
Move.
Moving.
Oh, it feels good. Talk it out, walk it out, dance it out.
Yes.
Whatever you can to get that emotion, energy and motion.
Yeah. Yeah. Follow the choreography of your own soul.
When you say that, what's funny, and then we'll wrap up, but when kids dance and they love it. And then they get a little older and they start fearing it, and they're embarrassed, and they don't think they're, all the things. And so I on the vacation in Sedona, Sean Benson, if you're still on here, she goes, remember when as kids you just run downhill with your arms up and just yay, and I'm like, when did we stop doing that? When did we stop skipping? When did we stop swinging on a swing set? When did we, I think all of those things, getting back into the rhythm of the childlike ways can help. And all the things that you're saying too, it just kind of goes hand in hand with that.
Totally. Do you know that if you had gone to a medicine person in the village, or, shaman, a medicine person in the village years ago, and you were complaining of any ailment, any illness whatsoever, anything, the shaman or medicine person would ask you 4 questions as part of their assessment, right? This was our clinical intake. It was, when did you stop singing?
Mm.
When did you stop dancing? When did you stop believing in the magic of storytelling?
Mm.
And when did you stop finding comfort in silence? Those are considered the 4 universal healing salves. Why? Because those practices, singing, the voice, dancing, the moving of energy, right? Storytelling, the medicinal narrative, and silence, right? The going in and deep listening, right? Is what reconnects us with source and with soul, right? That is our way back.
Let's just let that resonate right there. Let that settle in. That is amazing. This needs to be a clip, because, you know, if people are just watching little bits and pieces, they have to hear that. You know, I always say, if you put it in your head and you're aware of what you're not doing, you know, we always say, oh, I can't do this and I can't do that. And you're aware of, oh, you know, I mean, even if it's, I shouldn't chew with my mouth open, you know, I can't do this or that. I don't know. But it's also, what should you be doing? I just thought of that. Like, why aren't I, like, I'm going to sing at the top of my lungs. I think I do sing, but I mean, you know, there are a lot of things that I probably don't do that I should implement, and it'll make me feel better.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's not about adding a laundry list of things to do, right? But it's just go back to the roots, go back to the fundamental practices. You said it, Debbie. Kids, what do? They sing, they dance, they move, they, you know, they tell stories, right? You know, and so, yeah, if we could go back to basics, these are the fundamental foundational things that we need to do. If we can go back to basics, it's addition by subtraction. Let go of the unnecessary things. Let go of all the unnecessary things. Let go of all the practices outside of you. Tune into yourself. You want to find it. You want to find love. You want to find happiness. You want to find success. You want to find joy. You want to find good health. It lives in you already. It lives in a frequency. You want to arrive at that frequency? Go in. Go in
and grab it, Kristy.
Yes.
Go get her. Go find it in there.
Yes.
Oh, let's see. Trisha Harp. That's it. I'm getting the caulk out and going to draw on the chalk. Okay.
Yes,
driving the and hopscotch in yours. Oh, Trisha, I'm in. I'm
in. Can we do it together? I'm in.
Let's do this. Well, this has been absolutely fabulous. As always, I just think that you just need to be a regular, because we have so much to talk about that we can't do in an hour. So
yeah, time flies when we have fun, huh?
Yeah, it does. It really does. And I've learned a lot again. And then there's some things that you said, like, in a different way, that, so thank you, makes me think of it in a different way, in a new way, a new mindset. So I hope all of you here today valued this amazing information from Dr. Kristy. She has so much more. Oh my gosh. So much more. So we'll have her on again for sure. And maybe you guys can start thinking of topics you would like her to cover a little more deeply. And we can just do topic shows where it's just on one thing, which I feel like this kind of was. This was really, you know, about getting to know yourself, finding yourself, how to grieve, how not to hold it and store it and all that. So, but anyway, Kristy, hang tight in the back room. We'll have shams and some minutes. I'm just kidding. But once again, if you guys haven't downloaded my free app for Studio 11 Style, do that so you don't miss any of the live streams. And with that, it is a wrap. And I will see you next Wednesday, same time, different guest.
Thank you all.
That floats around me, keeping me